Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Uncle Ken's Twisted Tales and Misguided Adventures. This is Thanksgiving of 2019, and I hope that everybody can find something to put on their list to be truly grateful for this year. I know my list has more things that I can possibly count, but those are stories for another time. Tonight, I'd like to tell you a story that happened to me 30 years ago when I was deer hunting in southern Illinois. And this was on Thanksgiving weekend of 1989. A little backstory for you. My wife and I hadn't been married for very long. We were just young, struggling, starting out, trying to get a foothold like most young couples do. So we did a lot of yard sales, did a lot of budget meals, did, a lot of scraping, just trying to make the bills and make ends meet. Typical young kids starting out. So we depended a lot on the things that I hunted and the things that I fished and caught. We had a garden and we raised chickens and rabbits and things like that. And we got by. And honestly, those were some of the best times that I can remember. Well, as it happens on this Thanksgiving weekend, I'm not sure if you're familiar with how things work in Illinois for deer hunting, but there is broken up into two different small seasons, one in November and one in December, the first being right around Thanksgiving weekend. Typically there's 4 days to hunt, and then you can't hunt again until about the middle of December. And you're only allowed to use a shotgun or a muzzle loader or bow and arrow. Well, I used a shotgun. That was normal for where we were at. And legally, you can only use a deer slug. Well, they're not the most accurate thing, at least not at that time. There's been quite a bit of improvement over the years in that regard. But back then, if you could hit a large paper plate at 50 yards anywhere on the plate, you could consider it an accurate shotgun. So with that being said, I tromped off to the woods for my big deer hunt for the year. Well, the area that I chose to hunt in was down in the river bottoms, and there were canals that had been cut back in probably the turn of the century, late 18, early 1900s, that they used to haul barges back and forth down to the river to load on the boats. Well, those had long since been forgotten, and they'd grown up with brush and trees, and it was perfect habitat for deer and rabbits, squirrel, quail, things like that. Not a lot of big game in Illinois, just deer. That's primarily our big game. So it was always a great treat whenever deer season came around to get the opportunity to go out and harvest one. It put a pretty good dent in the freezer and helped hold us through the winter time. So on this particular weekend, the first 2 days it was bright and sunny, and I was full of enthusiasm and went out and found a place to put up a blind, and I sat and I sat and I sat some more and didn't see anything. Got up and still hunted through the woods, which is basically walk 10 or 15 steps and stop and wait for 30 seconds or a minute and observe your surroundings. So this is how the first 2 days went. I'd sit in the morning and I'd stalk in the evening. And it was really, really strange this particular hunting season, because normally the woods was just full of all kinds of sounds and life. You could hear the squirrels chattering and the birds, and you'd always see at least a group of young does or something moving through the brush. But this particular time, it was quiet. It was eerily quiet. So the third morning, I went and sat in the blind, Did the typical routine, waited till about 10:30 or 11 o'clock. I hadn't seen anything come through. And I got up and I still hunted for about an hour and made it probably 3/4 of a mile through the woods, just creeping along. And the whole time that I was doing that, I had this eerie feeling like somebody was staring at me, just watching me, but I couldn't quite get a handle on it. I couldn't quite tell from where. And once again, the day came and went. No deer in sight. Went home discouraged. Thought, one more day, I've got one more chance to make this happen. So the next and the last day, I got up bright and early, got out to the stand. I sat there for a few hours, and it was just a replay of the 3 days before that. I said, enough is enough. I've got to make something happen. So around 9 o'clock, I got up and I started creeping through the woods. And it was a really cold and damp morning where you could see your breath. And as I made it a quarter of a mile down from where my stand was, I could see behind this big water oak tree breath. And I thought, there's deer back there. I could see the steam coming off of his breath, breathing. And I crept a little closer and crept a little closer. Didn't see anything move. Kept getting closer and kept getting closer. Finally, I got up to where I could see all the way around the tree. There was nothing there. The breath was gone. I saw no movement. I heard no sound. So once again, I'd been skunked. I wanted to pack it up and go home, but I knew that I needed to fill that freezer. So I kept walking a little ways longer. And then I heard something through the brush. And it just didn't sound quite right. I never could get a glimpse of anything. So I waited against a tree for a good 10 minutes and never saw anything move. And then finally this big crash, kabang, kaboom, through the brush it went. Never saw what it was, but it took off in the other direction. And I thought, man, I've just spooked it. I'll never get a shot at a deer now. It's probably alerted everything out in the woods. I was not about to give up. I had half a day left, and I was going to make the most of it. Well, after about another 30 minutes of still hunting and walking, I was probably a mile at this point from where my stand had been. And lo and behold, here comes a buck through the brush. I can see his antlers looking great, coming right at me. So I'm frozen, holding up tight against the tree, just waiting for him to get close enough. I've got this shotgun, I've got deer slugs. I know that I need to get him 40 or 50 yards at the maximum. Let him come in. Just wait. Just let him come in. He's coming. He's walking. Well, I'm waiting, and all of a sudden, he spooks and he starts running right at me in a full charge and turns off to my right and starts running. Well, I swing the gun and take the shot, and I can see the hit. It's a little far back. It's not a good hit. It's somewhere high up in the lung. It's a long shot. Oh, man. It's going to be forever trying to find this deer. So, spend the next 3 hours going through the brush, chasing the blood drops. You could see the white foamy drops. I knew it was a long shot. It was going to be a bad time trying to track this thing down. So now I'm a half a mile farther in, another half of a mile farther in. I'm probably 2.5 miles from my truck at this point. I lose sight of all blood drops. There's no sign of the deer anywhere. I have walked in circles out from the shot area, walked all over the place trying to find any more blood droplets. I can't see anything anywhere. Can't hear anything anywhere. By this time, it's getting close to the end of the day, and I've just hung my head. It's time to put this thing to bed. I'm not going to get a deer this time. I'm going to have to wait till December and try it again. Who could believe this terrible luck? So I'm making my way back to the truck. Got about a 2-mile walk from where I came out of the woods at. And I'm watching the woods as I'm walking up, just in case I see something else. Nothing. All the way back, just discouraged. Man, oh man, what a bum afternoon. Had one decent deer show up, made the shot, and the shot was a bad one. Couldn't find him. Lost the blood trail. Lost the deer. Maybe if I come back tomorrow, I can find him in the brighter daylight when the morning starts again. So as I'm coming up the hill, I can see the truck. And about 10 or 15 yards in front of the truck is a deer laying on the ground. A buck laying on the ground 10 yards in front of my truck. Oh man, can you believe this? And I get up there, and it's the deer that I shot. There's the bum, bad lung shot, my slug hole right through it, high into the back. Now how did this deer get all the way from 1.5 miles down where I shot it up here to the front of my truck just to lay down and die? And I reached down, I touched the deer, and I tried to move him a little bit to make sure he was dead. No, he was definitely dead, and I realized that in a hurry. Something had twisted his neck completely around and had snapped his neck. Now you tell me what has got the strength to do that. In retrospect, thinking back, whatever was in the woods that day was tired of me down there in its pot, and it wanted me to be done, and it wanted me to be gone. So it did what it needed to do to make sure I got a deer and to get out of there. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.